Welcome to Parenthood Bites, the podcast where we explore life as a parent in tech. I'm your host, Chow, and I have over 15 years of experience in tech, and I'm also currently working as a career coach. I'm the proud mother of 3 incredible boys. In each episode, we have an inspiring guest who will share their remarkable story. You'll find their wisdom and insights both relatable and enriching, because after all, we're all in this parenting journey together. So grab your favorite drink, get cozy, and let's dive into today's episode. Hi everyone, welcome to episode 77 of Parenthood Bites. We're here with Lauren Fischetti, whom you may remember from episode 20. Lauren was a director of B2B marketing at a tech company and is now a dedicated life and career coach, focused on helping parents thrive in both their professional and personal lives. Last time, she shared her inspiring journey into tech and coaching. Today, she's back to talk to us about the evolution of her coaching career and equip us with tips to conquer burnout. Hi, Lauren. Welcome back. It's good to see you again.
Hi, it's good to be back. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. And can you remind me a little bit of, how old are your kids? Because we did talk to you before on a previous episode, which I'll link to the show notes as well. But, just as a refresher for folks.
Yeah, so I have 2 boys, and my oldest just turned 5 last month, and my youngest will be 3 in about a month.
Nice. So is your oldest in kindergarten right now?
He's in TK.
TK?
Yeah, so in California, they are rolling out like a pre-kindergarten as part of the regular school experience. And so it's called transitional kindergarten, and he's in that.
Yeah, that's cool. We were going to send our kid to TK, but then it was during pandemic, and I was like, oh, he's going to miss out. But it sounded really fun. I don't know. It's kind of like kindergarten's already fun, but it's like an even more fun experience, I feel.
Yeah, it's been amazing to watch the difference in how much he's grown up in this year. And we had considered keeping him at his daycare that his younger brother is still at because we really love the daycare. And now I'm like, I can't even imagine him at that daycare. It just seems so different from where he is right now.
Yeah, because it's like elementary school, right? It's a whole other experience. And you get that whole kind of big kid feeling.
Totally. He's like so independent. I feel like sometimes when he tells me about his day, I love to just imagine him walking around the school, doing things independently. And I'm like, oh my God, he's a big kid.
Yeah, that's so cute. And I remember last time we talked, you mentioned you're doing coaching and things. I'd love to hear a little bit about, what is your focus right now, how that's going and things like that.
Yeah. To be honest, I can't remember exactly kind of like where I was in the journey when we talked last time, but I think the one thing that I know has happened is I kind of, in terms of the clients I work with most and what I focus on supporting them with, in some ways it hasn't really changed. But over the last year, I've definitely sort of ebbed and flowed and evolved and shifted, just kind of paying attention to the conversations I was having with clients and parents and moms and women in tech, and also just what I was most interested in and drawn to and what I felt like I could help people the most with. And so over the course of the past year, I've supported folks on fighting burnout. I worked specifically with women in tech, helping them figure out how to thrive in their career while also feeling like they were present at home. And then now I think in some ways it's sort of like an intersection of all of those things. And so I do coach primarily women and moms in tech. And I work with women who want a career that energizes and excites them, but without having to sacrifice themselves or their well-being. If they're a parent, without having to sacrifice their family. So it is kind of like, it's an intersection in some ways of all the different areas that I have explored with my clients over the last year or so.
That's really neat. And so are there any new challenges or goals that you're currently navigating with your business?
Yeah. So the one, I guess, exciting thing is that actually about a year ago now, I started doing workshops inside of tech companies for groups of parents or women or moms on fighting burnout. And so it's all about like sustainable strategies for fighting burnout. So not like tips and tricks and things like that, but more like we actually do some hands-on exercises and activities and go through and help folks identify ideas and strategies and tools that are kind of specifically tailored to their own personal situation, because they're doing the work, answering the questions, and having the discussion in the workshop to actually figure out some strategies for their own, that kind of work for their own situation. And so that's been a lot of fun. I've probably done about 20 workshops so far. It started when an old colleague of mine reached out for Women's History Month last year and said, we want to do something that supports working moms specifically. She'd seen some of my content on LinkedIn and was like, could we do something around burnout? And so I built the workshop for them. And then since then, I've evolved it a bit. And depending on like the company and their needs and interests, I've done it for moms. I've done it for all parents. Actually, at one of the recent ones, it was parents and their mental health ERG that kind of came together. And then I also have just done it for all women at the company. And so that's been a lot of fun. It's just different than the one-on-one coaching. They're both great in different ways. It's nice to have a group of people come together, whether it's like, it's kind of anywhere between like 10, 20, 30, 50 people at a time. And just to see, there's a lot of discussion in the workshop. And so to see folks learning from each other, connecting with each other, feeling less alone and kind of supporting each other is really fun. And like I said, it's not better or worse. It's just different than the one-on-one coaching. So I'm enjoying that a lot as well.
And it's really awesome that you are focusing on that, because I think a lot of times we don't seek help until we are burnt out. And by then it's like,
yes,
you're not really in the mind space to really use those tools. And it sounds like
yes,
you're providing this right now. So it's like, regardless of what stage
yes,
people are at, or
yes,
how high their burnout level is, they
totally.
have these tools that can help them.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And I think that often we also, if we feel burnt out or like on the way there, we feel both alone because we assume we're like the only one. And we also feel maybe like there's something wrong with us, like we are weak or we're not disciplined enough, or like if only I could perfectly color code my calendar and meal prep every Sunday and start every workday with a perfect list of to-dos, then I wouldn't be burned out. And so I think a big part also of the workshop is it's not your fault. You're not alone. And there's actually these things you can do that don't require you to become like a superhuman robot, but are actually like tangible and practical and can be integrated into your day-to-day life that actually make a real difference.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge part of it, because a lot of times we don't give ourselves that grace and
Yeah.
we feel like we need to do everything, but then it's like
Yeah.
trying to achieve that perfection is just,
Yeah.
we're just too hard on ourselves.
Totally. Such a big part of burnout or stress or whatever it is. Obviously, we feel burned out and stressed out when we have too much to do, but like a huge part of it is also based on those expectations that we put on ourselves. And especially after you become a parent, right? You're like, I should be able to work just as hard as I did before I had kids. And I should be able to be 100% present as a parent. And I should never miss anything. And I need to like bake the cupcakes for the birthday by hand. And I need to like do this and do that. And so there's obviously a lot of external factors, but like a lot of it is the pressure we put on ourselves to be a certain way that we think we're supposed to be and that we think everyone else is being. And I think like letting go of those expectations is a huge relief, but really hard to do.
Yeah. So these workshops, are they like you go in, you talk to them, have one workshop, or do you have recurring workshops? How does it work?
Yeah, it's a good question. So right now it's a one-off workshop. It's just an hour long. Folks can choose to come or not. And I do have like a follow-up email series for people to, because it's one thing, right, to go to a workshop and you're like, yay, I have these great strategies. I have all these insights. I feel so inspired. And then the reality hits like half a day later and you forget about everything. So,
Right.
so that's a newish thing that I've developed, wanting to make sure that folks not only feel good after the workshop, but actually have support integrating what they've learned into their life. And so it is a one-off workshop. I'm working through building both like an extended version of that workshop. So kind of like going deeper on each of the things and having it maybe be 2 or 3 sessions, or just like a longer session. Like I've spoken with some companies about possibly doing it as part of their quarterly or annual team on site, especially for like remote companies, if everyone all comes together like once a year, having it be like a 2-hour session or something like that. And I'm also building out workshops on kind of like building real confidence and taking control of your career as well. So all that is to say, right now it's the one singular workshop, but I'm thinking through ways to make it a more robust experience for participants.
That's neat. So if folks want to attend a workshop, but they're not in the company, do you do those types of workshops for people not necessarily tied to the company?
Yeah, it's a good question. I haven't done the burnout workshop specifically, not tied to a company, but I have been thinking about doing it. And I do host other types of workshops, a little bit more oriented towards kind of like taking control of your career and all of that. And so the best way to find out about those is just to follow me on LinkedIn. And so I post about those on LinkedIn. And then I have been thinking about doing the burnout workshop outside of a tech company or outside of any company. But if anyone's interested, they can also reach out to me about bringing the workshop to their company. So typically I go through ERGs, like women's or parents ERGs, but I also do partner with HR teams or L&D teams or even employee experience teams. And so if anyone's interested in bringing this to their company, they can reach out to me and we can just talk about what might make sense.
Yeah, for sure. So it's definitely, they can reach out to you through LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we'll add a link to your
Yeah.
LinkedIn in the notes, of course, so people can
Yeah.
easily access
Yeah.
your page and stuff.
Yeah.
But that sounds really, really cool. And it's really awesome that you're doing that for people, because it's such a real thing that I feel like we should talk about more. That
Yes.
everybody, like you said, especially like a lot of parents, moms, we're just so hard on ourselves. We need that. We need to have those tools to
Yeah.
help us. And the more wider available, I feel like the more people can benefit from it.
Yeah, totally. I think you're exactly right, though. It just kind of normalizes the experience. Everyone's dealing with this in some way. And to your point, you may not be feeling like super burnt out, but you can still be at the beginning phases and just feeling overwhelmed and like you want to do something about it. So it doesn't have to be burnout with a capital B, but just normalizing that experience for everyone and kind of knowing I'm not the only one at work feeling this way. We all are. And how can we support each other?
And I feel like also knowing the signs of starting to burn out, because sometimes we don't know
Yeah.
until we're fully burnt
Yeah.
out. It's like, wait a minute, that's a sign. And being able to
Yeah.
identify that, I
Yeah.
think, is a huge first step.
Yeah, because it gets back to those expectations we have of ourselves. And we have this belief that we're supposed to work super hard all the time and grind and do everything. Then it's easy to ignore the signs because you're like, well, this is just work. Like work is supposed to be really hard. It's supposed to be overwhelming.
Right.
It's supposed to suck or
Yeah.
whatever it is. And then, you don't really realize what's happening until you've gotten really far down the path.
Yeah, because unfortunately, that's what's normalized.
Right.
It's like, oh,
Right.
we should just accept it.
Exactly. Yeah, I can't tell you like how many of my clients or participants in these workshops have said, when they examine their beliefs about work and success and hard work, that they have this deep-seated belief that work is supposed to be hard and it's supposed to be a hustle. And for work to be good or worthwhile, you're supposed to have to like work really hard. And I'm not saying that people want to be lazy, but it's like there's something in between where you don't have to be like killing yourself in order for it to be, quote, good work.
Yes. And some people feel like, okay, even if I don't feel good, it's fine.
Right.
I got to power through
Right.
it. It's like, wait a minute, that's your body telling you shouldn't.
Yeah.
I love that you're doing that. So what about for you? What are some things you do for work-life balance now, or like to make sure you don't get burnt out and stuff? Because it sounds like, you're taking on a lot as well on your plate, and with 2 young kids, that's like a lot.
Yeah, it is. So I think first, since it's been a year since we last spoke, and they've obviously gotten easier, I feel like we're sort of like out of, like I said, they're 5 and almost 3. And so we're kind of out of that very challenging young kid phase. And we're not yet in the older kids have a lot of activities. My older son is starting to do soccer and the piano and a few other things, but it's like very minimal, right? So so I think we're kind of like in this nice in-between phase where it's like easier than before and not as logistically challenging as it's about to get. And so I'm just like saying thanks for that. I'm also, this is not like directly about balance, but I feel like I am in this era of like trying to really lean into quality time with them because I'm seeing how quickly my older son is growing up, and even the younger one, I'm recognizing that this time is really special. And so I want to be present with them as much as I can. And so I think the main things I do here are I've been really practicing trying to get smarter about how I spend my time while I'm working, how I prioritize, what I do, and what I let drop. Because I think there's 2 big factors at play. And one gets back to what we were talking about our like beliefs about what work is supposed to be. And I think, I had a lot of beliefs around if you can do it, you should do it, and perfectionism and doing all of the things. And so I think kind of releasing some of that and being like, like, yes, I want to grow my business as quickly as I can, but also a lot of the things I have a choice. I can do that workshop, not the ones at the company, but like the ones that I run on my own. It's like I can do it in 2 weeks, or if I can be realistic and do it in 4 weeks, and like, or like, it's okay if I don't reply to those emails. And so kind of trying to be more intentional about what I spend my time on, what I let drop, allowing things to not be perfect has been really important for me. And it's like a never ending practice because I'm kind of bad at that. And so that's a big one for me. And then the other thing is I've also, and this actually comes out of one of the exercises we do in that burnout workshop, but I've been really mindful about what impacts my energy on a day-to-day basis and how I can focus on maximizing that rather than trying to be super hyper efficient at managing my time. And so one of the things I prioritize, which might seem counterintuitive because, well, I'll just say it, is I prioritize exercising. And often that means I'm exercising at the very beginning of my workday because with the 2 kids in school and their ages, I'm like, haven't quite figured out how to work out outside of working hours. And so I usually start my day at like 8 or 8:30, depending on drop off and all of that, by exercising. And so it means that I start my workday later and I do less as a result of that. Actually, I don't think I do less as a result of it because getting outside, moving my body really energizes me. And so when I practice reincorporating that back into my day to day, it's something I let drop when I first started my business because I was like, I don't have time for that. But when I practiced reincorporating it into my day to day, I realized that I, on most days, felt more energized, more focused, more creative when I exercised. And so even though I'm technically spending less time at my desk, I believe that I'm not doing less work as a result of it.
Right, because then you have more energy and you're more pumped. So it's actually,
Yes.
you're going to get more done, even though it may be on paper as less hours, but you're actually being able to do more because you're in it, you're focused, right? Because you
Exactly.
were able to energize yourself. And I think you
Exactly.
bring a good point, which is a lot of times we do sacrifice exercise first or whatever that is for ourselves first.
Mm-hmm.
And then we got to
Mm-hmm.
focus on like the family, the kids, the
Yep.
job, like all of those things. And then we're like, okay, for ourselves, that can wait. But then
Yeah.
it's so important to prioritize that.
Yeah.
Like you said, that kind of sets your tone for the rest of the day.
Totally. And that's such a big thing that I work on with all of my clients, but especially the mom clients is like prioritizing yourself and recognizing, I mean, one, that you deserve it just because you're a human, but like two, that it does make you show up better at work, better at home, better with your family, better with your partner. And then the third part, which I think we don't think about as much, is it also like it sets a role model. It sets like a model for your kids. And so your kids are seeing that it is important to prioritize yourself and that self-sacrifice, that self-sacrifice is not necessary. And so I work a lot on that because it's one thing to like say those things out loud, but then it's another thing to actually do it. And so we work a lot on figuring out how to incorporate some of those things back into our lives, both so that we just feel better, but then it kind of like changes everything around, like how you show up at work, how you show up at home.
Yeah, definitely. And the other things that you said really resonates with me and makes me think of some of your posts, which I think people should check out because it's awesome. But which
Thank
is
you.
like, as parents and as moms, a lot of times we think we can't do this and that, right? We can't be successful in our job and be there for our kids. But then it's like, we want to be perfectionists, but you're basically saying like, hey, you can still do it. You don't have to be perfect at it, but you don't have to give
Right.
that up either, right?
Right.
Like you were saying, the
Right.
workshop, it's like, hey, maybe instead of 2 weeks, I do it in 4. You're still doing it. You're still
Right.
accomplishing that
Right.
goal, right?
Right.
But it's
Right.
just, hey, I'm doing it and, I'm making it possible for myself that I can do both of those things without sacrificing my
Yeah.
goal. And I think that's a
Totally.
message I see a lot through a lot of your posts where it's like, we don't need a sacrifice on both sides,
Yeah.
but we just have to redefine of like what our end goal is and what's good
Yeah.
enough.
Yes, totally. I think that was after maybe like a year or so of working with a lot of moms when I reflected back on what was different about the women, or even just talking with a lot of moms. So, because some of them I didn't work with because they had kind of figured it out already. And it's like in talking to those moms who either had already figured it out or who ultimately were successful in managing it all, I think I kind of like silly. I expected there to be some like magic or something, but what it really is being okay with good enough and not I think there's this idea of like having it all or doing it all or whatever. But what that means is like literally being perfect everywhere. And that's not possible. Most of us don't even want that. And so I think when you are able to get really clear with yourself about what actually are the most important things at work, what are the most important things at home, what are my non negotiables, and like what am I willing to let go, that's when you can't have like all of it, but you can have everything to your point that you actually want. And of course, there will be hard periods and, you flex back and forth a lot. But if you have to let go of that idea that having it all means literally doing everything 110% and perfect, because that is not possible.
Yeah. And then we just get in our own way. And it doesn't feel like we're succeeding because we're constantly
Right.
trying to hit this impossible bar. And so I love
Exactly.
that you're having those conversations with people and helping them realize, hey, we don't need to set that impossible bar.
Yeah. Yeah, and like no one needs that. Like your kids don't need you to be a perfect mom or dad or whatever it is. They just need you to be there and be present with them and love them. And so I realized that so many of the things that I was doing that were like taking up all this time and stressing me out, I was like, my kids don't need this. They don't want it. I mean, they don't not want it, but it's like, again, I keep on going back to this example, but it's like, if I have time to bake cupcakes for the school birthday, like great, maybe they'll be a little bit healthier, but also it's like fine to buy them from the store. And even the same is true at work. I think so many of us develop really unhealthy habits before we have kids in terms of like what we think is expected of us and how hard we need to work and how much we need to do and how perfect it needs to be. And it like never even needed to be that perfect to begin with. And then once you have kids, it's not possible to work as hard and do as much. But even in a work context, you don't need to be doing as much, basically. You need to be doing the things that matter.
Yeah. I say that to folks all the time where I used to be like, I'm going to do everything for my team so they can focus on the project. But then I realized some of the things that I was actually taking on to help was actually opportunities that maybe they could do, but at the
Totally.
same time, if they did that thing, that would free me up to do something else and they can
Right.
pick up that additional skill or whatever that is.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And also earlier you said your son is in soccer and piano. How's that going?
Yeah.
That's so cute.
It's good. It's fun. Soccer just started, so jury's out on that. My husband is coaching the team, or he's one of the coaches, which is very cute. I think that's my son's favorite part of soccer. It's just so cute. Like all of these things are so adorable. And I feel like every new phase, I'm like, I can't believe I'm like going. I mean, it's 4-on-4 little tiny kids just like running around.
But it's so
I
cute.
don't even know what. It's really cute. And the piano has been really fun. I have been shocked by how much they're learning, actually. It's really fun to watch. Like they play with two hands and it's just like fun, both with the soccer and the piano. And I'm sure you've seen this with your kids. It's like fun to see how people learn things when they literally don't know anything about it. Like I feel like I was trying to wrap my head around that before his piano lessons. I was like, how?
Right. How is he going to do it?
Like, where do you start? I don't get it. So it's just fun to watch that.
That's awesome. Does he have to like practice during the week? And how does that go?
Yeah, he does. They encourage you to practice at least 3 times in order to get a practice sticker. So we try and do the 3 times. And that's totally, the teachers are really good about saying, and I think this is true with soccer and anything kids do at this age, like the point is just for them to have fun and to want to do more of it. And so we could probably be better at this, honestly, but it's like they don't need to practice the songs. They can just sing or bang on the piano keys or do whatever they want. And it's just something that is piano related. And that's good enough.
That's awesome. So it's like, it doesn't make them feel like, oh my God, it's another chore, but it's like, how do you
Yeah.
make it more fun?
Yeah.
I love that. Because
Yeah.
when I was little, they were like, you have to practice half an hour a day, the teacher. And she was like, your
Yeah.
parents has to sign it. And it wasn't like, it was very, I feel like
Yeah.
it made it. So I was like,
Yeah.
oh man, I got to practice
Totally.
again.
Yeah, I feel like everyone or most kids' musical experience is like that. And eventually you end up stopping it because you hate practicing or the songs are boring or whatever it is. And so, like yesterday when my son was practicing, he's really into Chapel Roan lately. And so I was trying to figure out just like the basic keys to play for like Hot to Go. I was like, HOTTOGO. And he like heard me once I figured it out. He was like, is that hot to go? And I feel like I want to do more of that where it's like playing very basic versions of songs that he really likes, just kind of like writing out the notes and letting him play that too.
Yeah, that's awesome because you're getting him excited about it, but also it's something you're doing together. And to him, it's
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, my mom just figured this out. That's so cool.
Yeah. I know the look on his face. I was like, okay, this is worth it. This is good.
He's probably like, how did you do that?
Totally.
That's so awesome. And then pretty soon he'll probably be doing it on his
Yes.
own. So you're helping
Yeah.
him pick up that
Yeah.
skill of like, okay, how would I figure it out when I hear a song that I really like?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really neat. So a lot of this episode is kind of talking about like your coaching journey and where you are today. And I was just curious, like if you had a piece of advice for someone that was starting on this journey, what would that be? Or what's something you wish you knew?
Yeah. So I think there's so many different ways I could answer the question, but the one that resonates with me most now is that I think when I was starting out, I thought I had to act a certain way or be a certain way, and that's that. And maybe it's like my corporate persona still clinging to me or something like that, but I thought I needed to be or seem a certain way to be, I don't know if like impressive enough, or I'm not sure what the word is, but like be a certain way for clients to want to work with you because they're trusting you, right, with their like career, their dreams, whatever it is. But I've realized that clients want to work with you because you're you. Of course, they want whatever it is that you offer and the outcome that you promise and the process or whatever you're going to do to help them get there. But ultimately, they choose to work with you because they like you or they resonate or they feel some connection with you. And so I think I would encourage new coaches not only to like not be afraid to be 100% themselves, but that actually that's like really the only way to do it.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that and also for
Yeah.
sharing your journey and everything. So, if
Yeah.
somebody wanted to reach out to you for coaching, they would just reach out to you on LinkedIn. Do you have like an exploratory call or how does that work?
Yes, great question. So I'll answer that question first. I do an exploratory call. I do a 45-minute call just to get a sense of like what's going on, what kind of like what they most want to change or be different, and then maybe what's challenging for them. And just to get a sense, again, back to what I just said, is this a fit? Like, do they want to work with me? Does it feel like we will work well together? And do I believe that I can help them? And so I always start with that. And so folks can definitely find me on LinkedIn and reach out that way. People can email me also just to like check in and say hi and see if it feels right. Or we can just give you the link for scheduling the calls as well.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing your journey with us today, Lauren. It was so good
Yeah.
to hear about it and also hear about your focus on helping people through burnout and things like that, because I think that's so important right now. And it's so great that you are having these conversations and having workshops and things like that. So thank you for doing what you do.
Yeah, of course. I love it.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Parenthood Bites. We hope you found our episode informative and entertaining. If you're a parent in the tech world or know someone who is, we'd love to hear from you. Please reach out to us at chow@parenthoodbites.co, and we'll be thrilled to add your experiences to our interviews. That's chow, CHIAO, @parenthoodbites.co. And to our potential sponsors out there, if you're a business or know of one that would like to support and partner with our podcast, please don't hesitate to get in touch. You can also reach us at chow@parenthoodbites.co. Thank you once again for tuning in, and we wish you a fantastic rest of your week. Until next time, take care and stay curious.